like to call the order the Finance Committee meeting for July 28th, 2020. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Alderpersons Wolf,
Yes.
Kubaki,
Here.
and Madden,
Here.
and Mayor Pitbalski.
Present.
We have a quorum present.
Thank you. Statement of public notice.
This meeting was noticed in accordance with the open meeting law.
Approval of the minutes from July 14th.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Going on to the 2019 audit presentation. Sharon, is there anything you want to say first, or should we just jump right into
We
it?
can actually jump right into Wendy.
All right.
Wendy, I think you can start.
All right. Well, thank you for having me here this evening. I apologize for my need to attend virtually, but I appreciate you accommodating. Hopefully you have received both the audited financial statements and our communication to those charged with governance. I believe you should have also received an executive summary, which has some bullet points and some summary information of both of those documents. That executive summary is what I will be using to go through those other documents, and we'll begin with the top of that executive summary, highlighting the communications to the committee and ultimately to the Common Council. Our audit process is similar on an annual basis, but has some variation. As part of our audit process, we select an audit team, and that team is typically the same individuals at the upper level, but we do insert some newer individuals to bring a level of unpredictability to the audit. We develop an audit plan that is specific to the city and review and test internal controls. Internal controls are an evaluation of your major transaction cycles and the controls that are in place surrounding those. When you think of your major transaction cycles, think of your payroll processing, the payment of your bills, the receiving of your taxes, that type of activity. So as part of the audit, we look at those areas and look at the process and controls that are in place and assess those in assessing risk over the audit. And we'll talk a little bit about more about risk in a moment. We also look at the city's compliance with laws and regulations. And then ultimately during our final field work, we test the account balances that are on the balance sheet for the city, along with the income statement, looking at revenues and expenditures. We review the draft financial statement that is prepared by Sharon and her team, and the related footnote disclosures that are required under governmental accounting standards. And then we review those results with management along with our communication document. Included in the auditor's report that has been issued is a clean, unmodified opinion. Included in your audited statements on pages 1 and 2, you'll find our audit opinion. That is a 2-page document that's on our letterhead. Again, that is a clean, unmodified opinion. That is the highest level of assurance that you can obtain from us as your auditors. And really there's a couple things that means. It means that the information contained within the audited statements is believed to be materially accurate, that all the disclosures that are required, again, under governmental accounting standards and auditing standards have been included, that generally accepted accounting principles have been adhered to, and that accounting principles have been consistently applied. When you look at that audit opinion for 2019, I just want to draw your attention. There is a section in there that's titled Emphasis of Matters. For 2019, there were 2 new governmental accounting standards, or GASBs, that were effective for the city. One was GASB 84 and one was GASB 88. Neither of those had significant or really any impact on how the city operates on a day-to-day basis. However, they both had some additional pages that were added to the financial statements. GASB 84 changed how the city handles the accounting for fiduciary activities. So those are monies you hold for someone else. So, for example, your tax collection process where you collect for the various taxing units. So again, some additional information included. GASB 88 changes some of the terminology within the long-term debt section. Again, doesn't change how it was accounted for, but did add some additional verbiage. Before I get into the financial statement highlights, just want to quickly touch on the communication document that you received. For those that have received that in the past and have seen what we have issued, that looks and feels very different. There's a lot of information in there. There's a new format, a change in presentation. A lot of the information that is contained within there is similar to what's been included in the past, but there is one section that I do want to note, and that is the item that I've highlighted under 8.3 on the executive summary where it says key areas of focus and significant findings. I just want to draw your attention, that's actually page 10 of that document. I just want to note that the items that are included on this page, which are titled again, one is titled significant risks of material misstatements, and then the other one is other key areas of emphasis. These are areas that we look at every governmental client that we have. These are risks that we believe that most, if not all, of our clients have. So these are not necessarily just specific to Muskego. They are specific to all of our governmental clients and are assessed and tested as part of our audit process. So again, I don't want you to be alarmed, but we do bring to your attention what areas we're looking at and where we believe the risks exist within organizations similar to Muskego. In addition, there's comments included in there. We continue the comment regarding decentralized cash collections and just remind you that there are other cash collection sites that do not fall under the controls of City Hall. There is information regarding new governmental accounting standards that will be effective for the city in the upcoming years. So there are new GASBs that will be effective. There's a list of them included in there. The one positive byproduct of COVID on the audit side of the world was that GASB delayed implementation of all of those standards for at least a year. So none of those will be applicable for 2020, but we will work with Sharon and her team to make sure those are addressed as they become applicable in future years. The last item I want to note about that communication, there is a required communication that is included in there, several pages that highlight our standard and customary communication that we need to have with you. Those begin on page 13 of that document. The only area I want to highlight in that section is a reminder to the committee that there are significant estimates that are included within the city's financial statement. Those are accrued compensated absences, your net pension liability through WRS, your net OPEB liability, and finally depreciation that is calculated on the capital assets of both the city and the utilities. All of those are estimated figures. Some of them are relatively large. A lot of that information, at least related to pension and OPEB, is provided by actuaries. And again, we review all of those estimates as part of the audit process and believe them to be reasonable. Switching gears, then going to the financial statement highlight portion of the executive summary, just a couple items to note in numbers 1 and 2. A reminder that included within your audited statements immediately following the audit opinion that I mentioned previously on pages 1 and 2 is management's discussion and analysis. That's found on pages 3 through 12 of your audited statements. That is a very high-level narrative of what happened at the city for 2019 in comparison with 2018. I often refer to it as a Cliff Note version. So again, I highly encourage you to take a read through that if you haven't already. The government-wide financial statements, which are on pages 13 and 14 of your audited statements, these government-wide statements are what are highlighted in that MD&A. or in the management's discussion and analysis. So that MD&A refers to these government-wide statements. Keep in mind when you look at those government-wide financial statements, those are on a completely different accounting methodology than what the city follows on a day-to-day basis, at least for your governmental funds. Your utilities are accounted for in the same manner. But again, when you look at those topside statements, numbers are very large. So those topside statements include all the capital assets for the city, also includes all the long-term obligations of the city on its statement of net position, where when you would typically look at a balance sheet for the general fund, for example, you wouldn't have that activity because it follows a different accounting methodology. So just want to remind you of that. Again, those follow full accrual. When you look at those, you'll note an increase in net position of $916,000. Operational expenses were up about $1.8 million over the previous year. And keep in mind that change in operational expenses will fluctuate on an annual basis. One, based on the activity that flows through your pension and your OPEB. Also fluctuates by depreciation, so based on the activity and where the capital assets are purchased or what departments those are purchased for, that number fluctuates, and then it will fluctuate based on your utility operations, and we'll talk about the utility fluctuation in a moment. Moving on, the general fund operations compared to budget. This is where we show the actual activity for your general fund compared to what you anticipated at the time of budgeting. The good news is that for the most part, although revenues were slightly under budget, expenditures showed favorable results when compared to budget to the tune of roughly $575,000. A couple of items to note. In the revenue category, part of the reason for that being under budget was in your public charges for services relating to your rec fees, which were down about $101,000 compared to budget, along with interdepartmental revenues, which are the charges that come through from sewer and water and refuse and recycling. Those were also under budget by roughly $151,000. Your expenditure results, again, under budget by $575,000, a positive scenario. Couple reasons for that. Your general government category was under budget by $133,000. The main reasons for this, your insurance costs were $55,000 less than budget. Your network charges were $20,000. Bank charges were $10,000 less than budget. So you had some large variances in your general government category. Public safety was $208,000 under budget. Police department salaries, along with dispatch salaries and benefits, were under by $150,000, and then your inspection department was under budget by $50,000. Your rec category also under budget by $111,000. Again, most of that in the rec area, $80,000 under budget, and a small under budget within your library category of $20,000. So overall, when the city put together its 2019 budget, the city budgeted to not use any fund balance. So you had essentially a balanced budget. For 2019, you added $502,000 to fund balance, and in a moment we'll talk about what your general fund ended at for 2019. Item number 4 on the highlights just refers to the water and sewer utilities, pages 19 through 22. Sewer operations had a decrease in 2019 in its net position. A couple different reasons for that. Customer charges, so the charges for service were down $200,000 over the prior year. Also, expenditures were up. So keep in mind that during 2019, you had the Town of Norway lift station project, and there were costs that were associated with that were the cities that were not capitalizable. So those were shown as expenses. So you had some larger costs than what you would have had in the past. The water utility saw an increase in that position of roughly $456,000. Item number 5 refers to the long-term obligations of the city as of year end. Those are found in your footnotes. During 2019, the city borrowed roughly $1.4 million. I think the important part to note within your long-term debt footnote is your capacity or your ability to borrow. You have the ability to borrow roughly 5%. I shouldn't say roughly, exactly 5% of your equalized value. That equates to roughly $165 million. You had $44.9 million of general obligation debt outstanding, so your capacity to borrow is about $120 million as of the end of 19. Obviously, that number fluctuates as you pay down your obligations and you borrow on a go-forward basis. The last item that I've noted here is your net position and fund balance pages that are, again, referenced to your footnotes. Just want to highlight, as I mentioned when I talked about the general fund, that the city does have a policy for its general fund that at 17% of the general fund's expenditures be included within the unassigned category of fund balance. You'll note that when you look at that footnote, the general fund had 7.2, almost 7.3 million of fund balance as of the end of 2019. That represents roughly 45% of your operating budget. So the general fund, with its addition of $502,000 for 2019, ended very positively and in a very strong financial position. At the bottom of the summary, I do include my direct line. I go through this very quick and at a very high level, so I'm happy to talk with any of you in more detail, but I'm also happy to answer any questions that you may have currently.
Does anyone have any questions for Wendy? There's a line forming.
I'm ready.
All right.
Yeah, I do have one question about the sewer expenses. I'm assuming that the operation and maintenance expenses, MMSD and Town of Norway, is that correct?
And then we had the lift station.
I'm sorry, but I cannot hear
Lift station
the
number
question.
8, that's what really impacted the
Okay.
expenditures.
All right, thank you.
Sharon was able to answer it.
Oh, wonderful.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you, Wendy.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Nice.
All right, moving on to license approval. Sorry, I always turn off my microphone. Moving on to license approvals. Recommend approval for operators licenses.
Move to approve.
Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Recommend approval for outside dance permit for AJ's Bar and Grill on Boxhorn Drive for August 1st, August 15th from 4 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. and August 18th from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. and an amendment to the licensed premise to include the grass area surrounding the patio for August 1st and 15th from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. and August 18th from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Motion approved.
Second.
Discussion, questions?
Questions. I appreciate you moving to the grass area. Now, the grass area that you're referring to, is that west of the patio area? North and west of the patio area?
Could you come up to the microphone?
I think it's.
It might need to be turned on, I'm sorry, right on top. There you go.
It's towards the lake.
All right, so the patio area is on the west side of the building.
Yeah, it's on the lake side.
So it's in between Boxhorn and
In
AJ's?
between Boxhorn and AJ's.
Okay.
Yeah, between the gun club and it. Yeah.
So rather than the tent being on the southernmost
It's totally
portion.
different
This
too.
is a separate event.
This is a completely separate event. Different music. It's just like any of our Sunday patio
Yeah, so
shows.
it's more of. I
It's
don't know,
two acoustic people on the patio.
Okay, okay.
So it's no different than the other ones you've already approved.
Except he's expanding the grass area, which just allows people to spread out.
Yeah.
Questions, comments on this one?
That's fine.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Recommend approval of outside dance permit and temporary amendment to license premise for Tailspin Bar and Grill on Martin Drive for August 13th 2020 from 6 PM to 9 PM.
Move to approve.
Second.
Questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Moving on to new business, recommendation for reduction of cash deposit for Maki Properties BV LLC Harvest Court.
Move to approve.
Second.
Questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Recommend approval for intergovernment agreement with City of Waukesha regarding the Great Water Alliance Project.
Motion approved. Second, whatever.
Kevin. So this is the IGA for the return water for the Waukesha Water Project, which, for those that are paying attention, will be tearing up a good portion of our city for a long time. So we'll be giving more information out as this comes. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Voucher approval.
Motion to approve utility vouchers in the amount of $320,184.28.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
No tax vouchers. Motion to approve general fund vouchers in the amount of $343,697.21.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
And motion to approve wire transfers for payroll transmittals in the amount of $364,365.32.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Finance Director's report. There is none. Any communications? Hearing none, all those in favor, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned at 5:23 PM.